7 years of breaking company records was met with laughter, mocking glances, and a cold refusal from people who made millions off my hard work. Sitting at that glossy boardroom table, watching Executive Vice President Trent and Chief Financial Officer Victoria dismiss my contributions, something inside me shifted forever. I did not yell or argue. Instead, I quietly placed a sealed white envelope on the mahogany table, stood up, and walked out of the building. 3 days later, when they finally opened that letter, the desperate phone calls began. If you have ever poured your soul into a job only to be treated like an easily replaceable ghost, you know how deep that disrespect stings. Please press the like button if you have ever been undervalued by people who profited from your brilliance, and subscribe to hear how this story unfolds, because the choice I made next completely reshaped an entire industry. My name is Paige Vance, and until 3 weeks ago, I was a lead technical specialist at Apex Industrial Dynamics, single-handedly keeping their operations afloat. My obsession with how things work started long before my corporate career. As a kid, I tore apart broken appliances in our garage, reassembling them to function better than when they left the factory. In college, my engineering professors nicknamed me Precision Paige because my calibration adjustments were more accurate than standard university machinery. When Apex hired me right after graduation, the starting salary seemed fair for a beginner, and I genuinely believed hard work would naturally lead to quick promotions and higher pay. The major breakthrough happened during my second year on the job. I noticed microscopic measurement errors in our testing gear that everyone else treated as normal variations, but in high-precision manufacturing, tiny errors ruin major accounts. I spent months of my own personal weekends perfecting a brand new calibration method using tools I bought with my modest savings. My new technique cut calibration times from 6 hours to under 3 while pushing equipment accuracy to near perfection, instantly putting our products ahead of every competitor. The company celebrated the sudden flood of new orders and flawless quality ratings, but my name was completely erased from the victory. During the quarterly board meeting, Trent presented my calibration framework as a team effort created by management, while I sat silently in the back row taking notes. A senior coworker pulled me aside later and advised me to remain patient, claiming that individual recognition was not how corporate advancement worked. So I stayed patient, trained junior technicians on my method, and answered late-night emergency calls without complaint. My biggest test came during my 5th year, when our European expansion nearly collapsed due to strict international compliance standards. Millions of dollars in manufactured machinery sat stranded in foreign warehouses because local inspectors rejected the initial setup. I cancelled 6 weekends of personal plans, sacrificing my long-term relationship in the process, while I redesigned critical testing parameters to pass European guidelines. Our equipment passed with top scores, the executive team threw a lavish victory party that I could not attend, and my salary remained unchanged. By my 7th year, I realized that entry-level technicians were negotiating starting salaries higher than what I was making after nearly a decade of loyal service. When I brought this discrepancy to human resources, they claimed that raising my pay would disrupt internal equity among established workers. I stopped arguing, polished my resume, and began discreetly exploring external opportunities. Within weeks, an incredible message arrived from Vance Sterling, the director at the National Quality Standards Agency, offering me the role of Chief Innovation Officer. The agency sets the mandatory compliance standards every major manufacturer must follow to legally sell their products in North America. The offered salary made my current pay look like a clerical error, and the authority allowed me to shape real industry policies. After a glowing dinner meeting with Vance, I agreed to accept the position, promising to give my current employer a full 2 weeks of professional transition time. I decided to give Apex one final chance to treat me fairly before making my departure official. My annual performance review turned into an absolute farce. I presented comprehensive market data showing that engineers with my output made 30% more, but Trent simply pushed my documents away and told me to be grateful I still had a job. Victoria chuckled softly, claiming that higher pay was reserved for extraordinary contributors rather than average employees. That cold dismissal dissolved my final doubts, proving they viewed me as disposable despite my irreplaceable contributions, so I handed over my resignation envelope right then and there. For 3 days, That envelope sat unopened on Trent's desk while I quietly organized my workstation and trained my colleagues on complex routines. On the third afternoon, my phone blew up with endless missed calls from human resources and executive offices. I walked into the main conference room where Trent and Victoria were waiting, their earlier arrogance replaced by nervous energy. Trent pushed my letter forward, demanding to know where I was going and offering an immediate 50% raise to keep me from leaving. They offered new titles, a corner office, and a seat on the innovation board that had rejected my ideas for years, but I politely declined every offer. During my final 2 weeks, I meticulously documented every process, creating detailed guides for 3 different engineers who were splitting my workload. As I handed in my security badge on my last day, Trent followed me to the lobby, desperate to learn where I was going. When I revealed my new role as Chief Innovation Officer at the Oversight Agency, his face turned pale. Those 3 weeks off between jobs were a breath of fresh air. I visited family, hiked regional parks, and let every panicked call from Apex go straight to voicemail. Once settled in my new office, my primary task was updating national precision measurement standards that had not been touched in nearly a decade. The revised guidelines raised quality expectations across the board, establishing strict recalibration timelines that directly targeted companies taking dangerous shortcuts to save money, exactly like Apex had been doing for years. When the new national standards were published, my phone rang immediately with a frantic call from a former Apex colleague explaining that their annual audit was next month and their equipment was nowhere near compliant. I professionally referred him to our official consulting department and moved on with my duties. 2 weeks later, Apex requested an expedited pre-assessment review, and our independent inspectors flagged their facility for massive compliance failures, outdated calibration records, and inconsistent quality checks, leaving them with a temporary provisional status. Provisional status was a massive blow that jeopardized their largest commercial contracts and forced executive leadership into complete panic mode. Trent called my direct office line, angrily accusing me of using my government position to get revenge for my denied raise. I calmly reminded him that our conversation was being recorded according to federal protocol, causing him to slam down the receiver in frustration. Within months, Apex spent $7 million on emergency equipment upgrades, the exact same upgrades I had requested years earlier. During an industry summit 6 months later, Trent and Victoria sat in the front row of my keynote presentation, scribbling notes like stressed students before an exam. Afterward, Victoria cornered me near the exhibit hall, awkwardly offering me a massive consulting role to help Apex save their losing contracts. I smiled politely and reminded her that official guidelines strictly prohibited private consulting with entities we inspect, leaving her standing there as the harsh reality of their situation set in. My final phase involved launching a national attribution framework, requiring companies to transparently credit technical breakthroughs to the original engineers who created them. When Apex filed a formal ethics complaint against me, our legal team executed Standard Protocol 37, presenting over 2,000 pages of flawless documentation that completely disproved their claims of sabotage. The board launched an internal investigation into leadership misconduct, resulting in Trent's swift resignation and a public corporate admission crediting me for 17 major technical innovations. Standing at the podium during the next annual summit, watching over 60% of manufacturers adopt the new transparency rules, I felt a deep sense of peace. My success was never about getting petty revenge on an ungrateful employer, but about building a fairer system where talent could never be exploited or erased again. If my journey resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences with corporate workplace betrayal in the comments section below.